for what should be quite an entertaining Sheikhs Breaks. We have Abrar Hussain from Islamabad, Khalik back from his wedding, and Sadia and Atif at Atif's birthday. So Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'll do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get going.
They can't see you.
Our respected guests today on Sheikhs Breaks are Sadia Chowdhury. Sadia, many of you will know, is a reporter based in Bromley with more than 15 years of experience. She's covered some of the biggest stories in local, national and global news, from the Arab Spring uprisings in the Middle East and war in Syria to child poverty and exploitation in Senegal and Bangladesh. She's also reported from the Rohingya refugee camps and the recent European refugee crisis. As a sports journalist, she covered the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia and England's epic 2019 Cricket World Cup win over New Zealand. Very, very jealous, Sadia. These days, she's out and about in London for Sky News, reporting on issues at the heart of her home city, including climate change, the impact of Brexit and the coronavirus pandemic. Assalamu alaikum, Sadia.
Alaikum salam.
You're sideways, but that's fine. All adds to the entertainment. Okay. Next is Abrar Hussain, is a British filmmaker, writer, producer and director, raised in London, UK and studied at Kingston University. Abrar began his production career in 2007 by writing, producing, directing and presenting the Model Mosque show on the Islam Channel. Abrar produced and directed a second show for the Islam Channel titled Faith Off between the years 2010 and 2014. Abrar produced a number of international documentaries for a host of UK charities such as Action Aid, International and Islamic Relief. Abrar travelled to over 30 countries during this period, including Lebanon, Mali, Egypt, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia. In June 2015, Abrar relocated to Saudi Arabia specifically to film his project One Day in the Haram, which was shown globally as well as locally, as we know, at both Al-Emaan Centre and KMCA Arabic School. So Assalamu alaikum, Abrar.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam everyone. Hope everyone's doing good.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. All the way from Islamabad. Well done for joining. And last but certainly not least, we welcome Atif Nawaz, no less. Atif needs little introduction, but before anyone confuses him for the infamous Majid Nawaz, Atif is an award-winning British Pakistani actor, writer, television presenter and stand-up comedian. He is best known for creating, writing and starring in BBC Three's acclaimed sketch comedy show Muslamic. But for those cricket lovers amongst you, he also brought joy into our hearts as one of the BBC presenters and commentators on Test Match Special, no less. Assalamu alaikum, Atif. He's there somewhere. Atif, you there?
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Atif.
Good. No, I don't know if various technical issues, but yeah, a lot of people ask me whether me and Majid are related, and the truth is he's my sister.
I've got to say, you are much better looking. So
it's all in the eye of the beholder.
The eye of the beholder, definitely. We'll be talking about that later. Let me just a minute. Okay, if I could ask all other participants for now to mute their lines, but we will be encouraging people to unmute themselves and ask questions. I mean, the idea is that it's a community engagement show. We've got a great panel of guests, and Khalik back from his wedding. Sorry, I nearly forgot you, but Khalik, my partner in crime, will be co-hosting today. Khalik, if you want to make yourself known.
Hey, assalamu alaikum everybody. It's fantastic to be on it. Yeah, it was a crazy day, I have to say, but I'm glad I'm back in time, and I'm massively starstruck today, I have to say. I mean, look at this panel today. Mashallah, mashallah.
Excellent. So let's get cracking, because I know Saadi, Atif, you haven't got a lot of time. Atif, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Big happy birthday from Sheikhs Breaks, Al-Emaan Centre, KMCA, everyone. So I wanted to really get straight into it, and ask you all how you actually got into your respective fields. So, Atif, I know you're pushed for time. Can you kick us off with how you got into film, TV, comedy, and the rest of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a strange one for me because there was a weird kind of fractured journey. Because I mean, I went to drama school, but then I ended up getting a real job and doing stand-up comedy alongside that just for fun. And then it took a very long time before I got offered like professional work in anything. But there came a time where I was getting enough kind of, you kind of balance a day-to-day job, like you do your 9 to 5, and then you run around to comedy clubs trying to, build something or build some notoriety or whatever, or some skill. And then eventually I got to a point where I was getting enough of those to think, let's make a leap of faith there. Let's go Bismillah, let's try. And I did, and alhamdulillah, kind of worked out. So yeah, just pretty boring. Went to drama school, learned how to do it.
Excellent. So was that after med school or before med school?
I'm still at med school, technically. If anybody ever asks, I'm still there. If you ever see me prescribing paracetamol to somebody, just nod along. It's just a little game me and my parents call that we play, and we call it letting the family down by becoming the first person in the history of our lineage to degrade themselves on stage. So it's one of those things, really.
One of those. Okay, Jazakallah khair. So Sadia, how did you get into news?
So after I graduated, I guess I still wanted to do the learning, and I think that news is one of those places where you're constantly learning. And so I think it was one of my friends who suggested to me, why don't you become a journalist? You should read yourself. And so I started writing for Arab News, which was based in Jeddah. I think it still is. I was in London, officially. And then I wanted to get into TV because I think TV tells stories in a way that print media doesn't. You see facial expressions and you hear the tone of someone's voice when they're talking and things like that. And so I think for a long time I sort of just hopped between very small organizations, and and I've just been doing that, different things. News has always been my passion, I think, because it's always happening, it's very new, it's very, very pushing, and perhaps the good thing is you can cover something quite intense and then go home and forget about it because the next day there's something completely different going on.
Brilliant. Sadia, listen, your audio is not the best. What we'll do is we'll move on to Abrar. If you can have a look at maybe tweaking that a little bit. I don't know if it's your headphones or just phone, but anyway, we'll come back. Abrar, how did you get into filmmaking? And actually, I didn't ask any of the others if they actually went to kind of, well, actually, no. Atif said he went to drama school, but Abrar, did you go to film school? You have to unmute yourself. Abrar, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, good. I think
okay,
it's a delay from Islamabad.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So no, I didn't go to film school or anything like that. I mean, obviously, when I was growing up in a typical Asian Muslim household, no one entertained the idea of becoming a film director or working in the media. So that wasn't really something I thought about. But I suppose the thing with me is I was just very, very passionate about film. I was very passionate about directing and producing. And I started using a camera at a very early age. I think I was about 10 when I first had my first camera and started filming all the local things, the local kind of weddings, scenes at the madrasa and things like this. And basically just progressed from there until I got an opportunity to produce something substantial that someone was actually going to pay me for. And even then it wasn't quite real. But yeah, we just progressed from there. I started my first production company. And then I kind of went from there, just building experience as I went along. And 15 years later, here I am.
Excellent. Jazakallah khair. So, I mean, that's sort of a bit of a background to everyone. So I think we're going to sort of kick off with the meat of the section. and I wanted to ask all of you in any given order, what we thought, what do we think, what role do we think Muslims have to play in the media right now, and how should Muslims best engage with the media? And you can take that whichever way round, whether it's from in front of the camera or behind the camera. Abrar, since you're on, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think from my perspective, there's a lack of Muslim creatives in these kind of prominent roles within media right across the board, like both in front of the camera, behind the camera, in research positions, in production positions, presenting positions, everything across the board. So I think everything really needs to increase. I think there needs to be a much greater amount of people getting trained in this industry and people developing their skills in this industry, because unless they're getting trained and developed at this age, then in the next 5 or 10 years, we're not going to have those people coming through. But having said that, I think things are certainly a lot better now than they were, say, when I started 15 years ago. You know, there was a very, very minimal amount of kind of Muslim media professionals, or definitely in the mainstream space. But if you look at the situation now, you know, there are success stories out there. I mean, Atif is right here with a success story from BBC Three, and you know, there's various others of our comedians. I mean, I was really proud to see Nabil Abdul Rashid representing on Britain's Got Talent last week. You know, so that's like a typical kind of success story. We've had, you know, Muslims featured in EastEnders. There's been an appearance of Muslims within the creative space, within the film and the TV industries, and it's been picking up in the last few years, especially. You know, recently read a story about a Muslim superhero that's recently been cast, a Marvel miniseries. You know, it's fantastic news. So I think all of these things, you know, there's a lot of different kind of avenues going on. I think in TV, it's actually pretty good now. It's pretty much better than it has been anywhere in the last 15 years. You know, we've got series like Ertugrul out there that's making massive waves all over the world, you know, and things like this. I mean, in film, it's not so much represented. Film is kind of like, you know, there's TV and then there's film is up here. You know, we've got very few representatives in film, maybe just Riz Ahmed, who's doing amazing things at the moment. But aside from that, not too many kind of household names. But, you know, I think, you know, when we look at this industry, it's more than just looking at media in terms of TV or film or radio, even more looking at a general kind of entertainment space where, you know, Muslim comedy is just doing fantastic things, especially in the UK, but all over the world. But also, you know, in sports, like Muslims are very predominant in sports right now. If you look at the successful Liverpool team, that's the current Premier League champions and the European champions, like, yeah, this team was built on the back of 2 Muslims. Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. So these 2 Muslims are literally, if you took those 2 out of the team, that would not be the same team. I don't care what anyone says, but that would not be the same team. It's those Muslims that are driving that team. And if you look, you know, further into the fields of boxing, if you look at UFC, you look at the amazing things that Habib is doing, representing Muslims, you know, from all over the world. I think, you know, Muslims are in a very good position, but we do need to build on it. It's not as if it's a done job. Things are better than they were before, but there's still a massive amount of improvement that needs to be made.
Jazakallah khair. And I take it you're a Liverpool supporter, bro?
I'm not. No, I'm not a Liverpool supporter at all. I'm from North London, so I support Arsenal. But yeah, we've got our fair share of Muslim players as well. You know, Mesut Ozil, I think, is a wonderful representative, regardless of what anyone says. I've seen Mesut Ozil on a pitch pick up a piece of bread that someone had thrown at him and kiss it and say Bismillah and place it to the side and take his corner. So wonderful examples of Muslims in that space. You know, I think a really good role model.
Alhamdulillah. Well, since you mentioned Mo Salah, Atif, I couldn't not go straight to you with the Mo Salah auditions, which was flying around not so long ago. What's your thoughts on Muslims in the media, in front of, behind the camera?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Abrar said, you know, we're lucky it's a time that the more of us are there. But my whole thing is kind of like about being incidentally Muslim, you know, like I don't want to feel like every time I get on camera, or every time I get on stage or on the radio, wherever I am, I need to like announce myself as some kind of representative for my entire faith, right? Because the truth is, people outside of Islam, when they look inwards at Islam or from externally at Islam, they think of it as like, oh, everybody who's a Muslim is just part of this one big homogenous group, and everybody wakes up in the morning with a miswak, and everybody's always eating copious amounts of chicken, and everybody's got diabetes, and you know, everybody's got you know, like all these, like, it's not like we'd love to. And the thing is, I don't always want to scream and shout about that I am Muslim, you know, like I'm there I am Muslim, but I've got things to say about politics that don't always have things to do with Muslim countries, or I have things to say about sports that don't always have to do with Muslim athletes, or I've got jokes to make that don't always refer back to my experience as a Muslim man, or whatever it is. Like I don't want to feed this idea that all of Islam, all of Muslims are just one big homogenous group. And I fully understand that I did a show called Muslimic, which kind of contradicts everything I'm saying. But the point is, like, I just want to show what my life is like. Yes, I'm Muslim. That's one part of me, and it's a big part of me. And that, but I don't need to talk to you about Islam all day long. You can see how Islam has informed my behavior, my thought process, the way I go about my day-to-day activities, and in that way demonstrate things. I think a lot of young people, or I say young people, like older people, whoever's getting into media, television, comedy, whatever it may be, sports journalism, regular journalism, whatever it is, like, you don't need to feel like it's a burden. It's something. Islam is something that strengthens you, particularly from, like the way you think, the way you approach things, the way you'll process ideas and thoughts. You don't need to, be like, oh God, I have to be careful because I know this brother who's going to take this the wrong way, or I know this sister who's going to never follow me on Instagram, or I know this guy or my parents will get me. No. Just do whatever you want to do. My whole life, bro, Amit, I promise you, everything I've ever done since I made that choice, I had a very nice job, alhamdulillah. I left it to do performing arts stuff. I've made loads of random decisions with my career that nobody would have. Like, I made a left turn into cricket journalism or cricket broadcasting. Nobody does that. How many comedians?
That was the right turn, though. You know that. That was the right turn.
I thought it was the right turn. But, like, it's not a very common thing. Like, nobody says, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. And then, they might do a TV show, but it's very rare for them to say, I feel like commentating on some cricket. That doesn't happen. So, alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed. I've got these incredible opportunities, but I just do everything I want to do. And I know that I don't need to. Being Muslim is it's just there. It's like breathing. I'm always Muslim. You always know that I'm Muslim. I don't need to. You don't breathe like, breathe out, breathe in. Nobody does that. You're just always Muslim, and people will always know that you're Muslim. It's fine, and they'll see you doing cool work with whether it's in television, film, comedy, all the alhamdulillah, all the great things I get to do, and then they'll go with that. What do you think, Sadia?
Yes,
you can use my phone now. We're sharing a phone in the interest of bandwidth.
The audio is going to be better now. Sadia, tell us.
No, I agree with you, Atif. Actually, I think that's really important, that people just have to accept that you're a Muslim and you're not always going to be talking about Islam or Muslim affairs. But I also think we have to have representation from all different parts of the world and different communities. It's not just Muslims who aren't doing as well in the media as everybody else. I think we have got a bit of a white middle-aged man-centric media, and so there's a need to break away from that in all respects, not just for Muslims and not just for women or not just for black people or anything like that. And I think the main thing is we need a diversity of thought. I think that gets overlooked a lot of the time because you'll get big media companies hiring people based on their looks because they look Muslim or they don't look Muslim, or they look black or whatever. And
alhamdulillah, I get all the work for that reason. So
and I think what we need to really focus on is the diversity of thought. So we've got people thinking differently, not just everyone thinking like a middle-aged white man.
And can just come off that. You made this really good point, Sadi, because like even internally as Muslims, it blows my mind how like limited our scope can be sometimes when we think of Muslims. Like, we need to remember that this is an incredibly diverse faith. It's a fifth of all people, right? So when you think of Muslim, you might, it's like that Pakistani guy who lives in Ilford. No, that's a Muslim. That's not all Muslims. That's a Muslim. It's a faith that goes across all races, all geographical borders, all over the world. It's incredibly diverse. Don't let it be a caricature. Don't bring it down. Or being a Muslim means this. No, being a Muslim might mean that to you, but there's another person on the other side of the world who looks completely different to you, who's got a completely different experience of being Muslim. So, our core beliefs of us, it's the Quran, it's, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All of these things are part of our faith. Of course they are. But like the experience, the thought, the way we carry it is different for everybody around the world. So that's just sorry, I'm talking a lot. Amir, say something, man.
No. I'm completely starstruck, like Khalik. I'm just gobsmacked. No. I mean, all beautiful
I was
things.
starstruck too. When I saw, for the first time, when I saw the brother in Islamabad, I was like, oh my God, how did you guys get him? How much money do you have? He's got
Listen, tonight Sheikhs Breaks goes global. This is big time for us. So, alhamdulillah for and jazakallah khair for everyone for joining. So I can't get my words out now. I'm so starstruck. So I'm going to hand over to you while I bask in starstruckness.
Well, no, I actually have to say that it's exactly really, really interesting points that everyone has just made there. And I think Arthur has alluded to sort of a little bit more about the question I'm actually going to ask, which is...
I'm sorry. Can you just tell me what that yellow thing behind you is over your shoulder?
Okay, so those are 3 pictures that my children actually made. I think that is a flower that my daughter made. So I think there's a flower there. There's a fish. Sorry?
Promise me it was your daughter and it wasn't you, secretly.
Well, I wish it was me, but mine would look more like a blob, I think. Because I've got 2 left hands when it comes to drawing.
But yeah, Khalid, you were saying, so diversity of thought, which Sadia mentioned. So
yeah, and also I think you mentioned a lot about the fact that you don't always want to be represented as just a Muslim. But I think in light of a lot of the minorities having really strong lobbyists, what do you think the effect of, say, the fake news or the kind of the tarnishing everyone with the same brush when it comes to a Muslim what effect is that is having on our communities, and how can we use the media to kind of sort of slightly change that? Because obviously often when something or other happens, it's defaults to it being another Muslim or it's just quite sort of negative, or we have a lot of this fake news going out. What are your thoughts in that area? I'm sorry to make it slightly more serious, but I think this is kind of an important point in media.
Yeah, do you want to, like, anybody?
Okay, maybe should I?
Yeah, I mean, just my 2 cents is, like, you're right. It is difficult. I just saw somebody's comment come up, and it was a very interesting point about, when there's so few of you on screen, you feel like you've got to represent more people. You do feel that burden. But I really think, your salvation in terms of media is to not feel the burden, is to not have that burden there, and to think, look, I know that there's not a lot of Muslims in the news, or I know there's not a lot of Muslims in comedy or TV or whatever, but I'm going to do my thing here because that's the most sincere thing I can put out. Sorry, Sadia.
But also, I think, I did see that comment come up, and I think one of the good things about being in that boardroom when those stories come up, because I think the question was about, do you feel like you have to always do those kind of stories or something like that just because you're a Muslim? And I think the good thing about that is that often the stories about, let's say, the Muslim community are done poorly. So if I'm there in the editorial meetings, if the story lands on my lap, I know I will do it probably better, just because we have this long history in Britain of people not doing stories about the Muslim community properly. But at the same time, like at Sky News, they don't always give me the Muslim stories, but certainly if there's another reporter, correspondent, or a producer working on it, sometimes they might ask me something about it, just because that's what we do. Like if I'm doing a tech story and I'm not a tech specialist, I'll ask somebody who might know a bit more about it. And I think that's the important thing, is not always getting lumbered with those stories, because you don't want to get pigeonholed into a box to only do, for me, a Muslim story, or for me a woman's story or something like that. But to be able to offer that expertise where it's missing. But I'll say that at Sky, there's a lot of people who know a lot about the Muslim community, and they do really well with it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there, but how about really specifically about the stuff is really quite detrimental, or it's quite, in fact, fake, and it kind of puts the entire communities looking to apologize. And we had this some years back where everybody was requesting all Muslims to apologize for certain things. I mean, how do we deal with that, and how do communities without having that right representation in the media? I mean, I think, Sadia, because you're working at Sky, I'm sort of going to ask you to maybe, if you could elaborate a little bit more there before I go across over to Abrar and see what he thinks.
I would say you should engage, and that means write letters in, make complaints where you need to make complaints, and things like that. In Britain we have got proper channels to make complaints and stuff. And I know a lot of people who will come and complain to you about something, but not go through the actual channels of making that complaint. They'll kick up a big fuss about stuff. And, you know, we all do it. We all complain about something that we've seen on TV, but we won't go up to Ofcom if we really wanted to, or the Press Complaints Commission. But I think unless you do that, unless you get your voice out there and say what's wrong with a piece and demand an apology from, I'm not going to say the name of the newspaper, but I think you can't just sit there. You can't just be a sofa critic when it comes to the media.
Thanks. I totally understand. Aurora, what do you think?
Well, I think, you know, with fake news, I mean, fake news as a concept, as a word, has been fairly recent, I think. I've only ever associated fake news since Donald Trump came to power. That's literally where I got to know fake news. Before, there was only Islamophobia, and there was only negative Muslim news stories. Like, these are two different things. Fake news is about everything. You know, there's fake news about COVID going around every day. You know, there's fake news about different world leaders going on every day. But the Islamophobia, I mean, I have to be honest with you. My career in media is a direct response. I think the reason I entered into this arena was literally to make a difference in this field, you know, to kind of balance the completely one-sided kind of torrent of information that was coming out anti-Muslim, basically, and you know, was very negative, and a lot of people were getting influenced by that. That's why you would walk down the street and meet people, and they would potentially be completely brainwashed into thinking, oh, all Muslims are a certain way, or all Muslims are like this, because they'd read this. It's all they knew, because all they had, the diet of information coming from the mainstream newspapers, coming from the mainstream news channels, was literally so anti-Muslim. So I think this is a different thing, and this has been going on for like 15 years, 20 years, or you can trace it right back to 9/11 if you want to, because this has been happening since then. I think my career and the career of many other Muslim professionals that I know is a direct response to this, to try and combat this, and we are literally here in this space trying to combat this. And you know, it's a battle that we're not particularly winning at the moment, although we're winning it, you know, as we talked earlier, on a much more positive note. Like, there's a lot more representation on screen at the moment, so we're winning it in that way. But where we're not winning it, and I think you know, the sister referred to it earlier, is, you know, as a community, we're not organized. We don't get our complaints into people, like people who are going to make decisions on this, like Ofcom. We don't put the pressure on the way other communities would and have if their community was under threat like this. So there's all these kind of learning processes going on, and also, like, just on the question of representation, I mean, you know, I'm here representing Muslims. I mean, that's why I'm here. You know, if I wasn't representing Muslims, then or representing at least an Islamic perspective in all of my work, in everything that I do, everything that I touch or come across, you know, it's really good to see that even the most, like, some of the most famous people are Muslims. You know, the most famous, who I would say the best and most famous comedian in the world, Dave Chappelle, is a Muslim, but you would never hardly ever know it, you know, because they never bring this out in public. You know, Ice Cube is a Muslim, you know, some of the biggest rappers, some of the biggest basketball stars, they're Muslims. But, you know, there's a difference between being someone who's very, very famous and mainstream and just happens to be Muslim, and someone who is Muslim, you know, in a mainstream space and is representing Islam, you know. So these are two different things, and we need both of them. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure once you come kind of into the mainstream sphere to kind of play down your Muslim side. Because maybe it's not good for your career, or there are pressures like that, and I do understand that. But for me, you know, I'm just really happy to operate in this Muslim space where the mainstream is not necessarily putting out, because sometimes I feel, and I don't know if other people agree with this, but I kind of feel they're just putting out, okay, here's an odd Muslim person, or an odd, you know, it's tokenism. There's a token, okay, here's something for you, but actually we're not actually making a big difference, you know, from the center of things. So I kind of feel that we do still need more kind of Muslims who are representing Islam, who are representing a Muslim perspective. And you know, one of the funny things, because we talk about the mainstream news channels, but we're really referring to the UK, Europe, and America, because one of the great things that happened in the last 5 years of my career, which I didn't really know before, and I'm sure lots of other media professionals may not be aware of this, is just the huge Islamic market that is out there, you know, in other countries where actually we are mainstream. You know, if you go to a country like Egypt, Turkey, you know, Pakistan, where I'm sitting right now, you know, Indonesia,
Absolutely.
Malaysia, these are huge mammoth Muslim markets where you can actually go and do what you want, and no one's going to actually think, oh, that's strange, there's a Muslim on TV, because it's completely the normal thing, you know.
I completely agree with you. Sorry, Amr, go ahead.
I just wanted to take one of the questions from the chat, actually, on what Abrar was just saying. So the question is, what's the panel's view of the quality, output and professionalism of Muslim-specific media outlets, Islam Channel, 5 pillars? So Abrar, you were talking about, the fact that it's pretty thin on the ground, but is that because the quality is not there, or the channels to get the quality out is not there?
No. You see, I think one of the other things that you only start to realize once you've been in the game for a certain amount of years is that the quality is related to budget. It's as simple as that. Quality is related to budget. You can't talk about a channel like Islam Channel and compare their output to someone like the BBC or ITV or any of these channels, because the kind of budgets they're operating in are completely different. It's a different ball game. They're still in that phase where funding is still a problem to make a show. If you went to them with a concept and say, hey, I need 150K to make this concept, they haven't got it. So you end up going somewhere else, or you end up getting that money from somewhere else. But really, I think this thing on quality really comes down a lot to budget. They would be able to be a lot more professional, have a lot better output, if they had the... But it takes a long time to build that. And I think, as a Muslim community, I honestly feel like it's kind of our duty to support people, especially like Islam Channel, who've been there right from the start. Or 2000, are very early in the market, but not just them. There's guys out there like Ilmfeed, there's guys out there like One Path Network. They're doing fantastic work. They need a boost, and they need the support of the community to really, to come through and be able to. Because the thing is, if we want to be taken seriously as, certainly as creatives within the TV and film fields, the content we produce mainstream else, why would anyone watch it? Why would we ever reach a non-Muslim audience? Islam Channel, I wouldn't even say 99 who watch Islam Channel are Muslims, but yet when you're in a different space, we should be putting content out. Yes, I'd say it would be Islamic perspective content, but should be open for everyone, as in a non-Muslim would be interested to watch it. And that's actually how we solve this problem, by producing content by getting content onto Netflix, for example, and things like this. These should be the priorities, not actually improving Islam Channel, because that's literally just going out to Muslims.
Yeah, that's really, sorry, go Dom.
Click, you go.
No, I was going to say that's really interesting. Actually, I was going to then ask the next question, is to say, how do we sort of get those sort of budgets together, or how do we get, I don't know, the Ertugrul type quality? I mean, if you look at something like Ertugrul, I'm going to say this because I know Amir loves it just as much as I do. But that is quality, right? And they've got the big budgets there, and actually, they're now in the Guinness Book of Records for being such a fantastic show, and it's been translated in so many languages. That kind of stuff. How does that sort of come about? I mean, where are we, and where do you think we need to be?
You guys go ahead, because I feel like I've done a lot of talking.
All right. Well, let's move it over to Atif and Sadia, see if they want to interject and add something.
From the news perspective, we don't operate on massive budgets. I mean, of course we do on something like the US election. We'll be spending a lot of money. People will be spending a lot of money on things like that. But when a story breaks, you literally just pick up the camera and rush there and just do what you can. But I think Atif will know more about Netflix and...
Well, no, like, I mean, I take a slightly different view on it, right? Like, when I watch Islam Channel, right, and I say this as somebody who's done I did a show on Islam Channel for 5 years. So I spent that much time working with Sadia often, and some people who've turned out to be some of my best friends, a show called Living the Life, and I really enjoyed doing it. But when I think about Islam Channel, when do I watch Islam Channel? I watch it when I want to know what time the azan is, what time the prayers are, and I watch it when I want to hear Quran recitation, and I watch it almost all the time. I watch it sort of throughout the whole month of Ramadan, because I think Barakah is going to come through my TV screen. So like the whole idea is like I think it serves its purpose. We can talk about quality, and of course, bang on. The brother is bang on. Money equals better production value, and production value will attract a broader audience. But I think really it's how good is your content, and you don't need to spend an absolute fortune to deliver great content. Like, some of my favorite bits of content have been made on shoestring budgets. People are shocked when I tell them how little money we spent to make Muslimic, and that was on BBC 3 and BBC 1. So it didn't cost a lot of money to make it. It was really just about a commitment to an idea, using the resource that you have. I think it's an old school excuse to say, oh, we just didn't have the budget, we didn't have this.
Wait,
I think
you're saying it didn't cost a lot of money, but how much was that wig you wore in Muslimics?
It's just my personal that's between me and my accountant. So this is the idea. Like, I think if you apply yourself, if you're really committed to doing something, right? Every 4 years in a row, I went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and did a show at basically a loss, right? But I did it because I love the craft of stand-up. It's my favorite thing in the world. But B, I think I had something really important to say. You know, 2 of the shows were exclusively about Islamophobia and how you encountered, well, how I encountered it in my day-to-day life. First, just regular life, then as like, you know, sort of semi-fame life, right? So when you're that adjacent and I wanted to talk about that experience. It's not about the amount of money I put into it. It's the story that I was telling that makes people gravitate to it. We talked to somebody mentioned Nabil Abdul Rashid earlier. Yes, it's great to see him on that big platform, but I've known Nabil for 10 years now, and he's been as good as that for 10 years. He's been thrilling audiences for 10 years, like Muslim audiences, non-Muslim audiences. The quality of the brother's work was incredible. The industry is shaped as such that it's not a meritocracy. So this is one thing everybody needs to understand. When the film and media and television industry, it's not about who's the best. The best doesn't get to be on TV. There's a whole sequence of factors that come into it. But you have to leave all entitlement at the door. You've got to know that when you get the opportunity, whether you've got a 10 grand budget, whether you've got a 100 grand budget, whether you've got £1 million budget, you have to make an impression, and leave all the excuses at the door. If you're a strong enough character, if you've got something important to say, and I really believe channels like Islam Channel and, you know, all of these faith channels, there's so many of them nowadays, right? But like, if you've got an important message to put out, you'll do that. You don't need to lean on, we didn't get the subscription money, or the sponsor pulled out, or, my ankle hurts, so I can't go and meet the uncle who's going to give me £5,000 to make it. No, if you've got something important to say, you'll find a way to make it work. And
listen, so I mean, that's really interesting. But you mentioned that the quality's been there, we just haven't had the breaks. How, if the challenges are there and we can produce the quality, how would we be encouraging our children, our youngsters, to get into media studies when they already know that they may never get a chance for an opportunity? I mean, how do you feel about,
I know what you're saying. I got to say, it's a really good point that you raised, but like now more than ever, like think about when you watch TV when you were like sort of 8, 9 years old, right? And how many times did you turn on the TV to see, Muslim people? Do you remember the time you turn on a TV show and you see like a Muslim contestant on Blockbusters and you'd be like, oh my God, oh wow, Blockbusters? Or like, one of those game shows, like I didn't watch Catchphrase or whatever it was, right? Generation Game. You'd see a Muslim family, get really excited on Family Fortunes, right? But that doesn't happen anymore, because there's loads of Muslim people all over TV. You've got that proper diversity of Islam on television. Someone like Nabil Abdul Rashid, who is from Nigeria. He's on Britain's Got Talent. Guz Khan, he's a Birmingham Pakistani origin guy who's on like BBC Three. You got myself, Pakistani origin London guy who's on TV. You got Ali Official, Bangladeshi origin. So you're getting a little bit more of that diversity. And even in America, you got people like Mo Amer who's on TV. You got Rami, who just won a Golden Globe. So now more than ever, if you want to encourage your children or the next generation to get into the arts or news media or sports media, whatever the kind of media you want to penetrate, there's loads of people to point to. Whereas I remember there was a time, my role model when I got into stand-up comedy was a guy called Omid Jalili. He's not even Muslim, and I'm not saying that your role model has to be Muslim, but there was nobody Muslim to point to that I thought. There were people around, but there was nobody that I looked at and thought I want to be like him. You don't necessarily need that Muslim role model, but there's enough people of them around now that you can point to someone and say, well, look, he can do it. You can do it. She can do it. You can do it.
Also, I think it's probably easier now for parents because children are already on YouTube with their own YouTube channels and Snapchat, and people are more comfortable speaking about things.
That raises its own concerns.
But with I don't know, like in my family, I think my parents tried to deter me from that. It wasn't that they needed to encourage me. They sort of thought it's not a sensible industry to go into, and everyone else in the family is going into investment banking, and then there's Sadia wanting to be a journalist. So I think
but they're proud of you when they see you on Sky News and they see your stories. They're massively proud of you.
I hope they are.
Because like as one of your friends, but I know, but like we share with so many mutual friends. Everybody's so proud of you when we see you. It feels like a win for all of us. When you're on there, it's
Absolutely.
not like
we're all proud of you, Sadia.
It's a win for all of us.
Very proud.
So when you see somebody that you know has the best intention, that represents like our values, that it goes through that moderation process, that's in those rooms, that's influencing those decisions about the news, the things that we take as fact, right? Someone somewhere makes an editorial decision to say, this is the fact, right? This isn't like Game of Thrones. This is fact, right? This is what happened today. So the way that information is presented is absolutely crucial. And to know that you've got someone there that you trust, that will A, deliver it, but B, help shape it. That's the most important thing of all, because that is the narrative that goes out to everybody, not just the Muslim world, but to the non-Muslim world, that's increasingly getting more hostile to us.
Right. Well, I kind of really agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to now try to address the elephant in the room, because I think Sadia alluded to it slightly just earlier on, where she was, I guess, discouraged a little bit by her family. So I think what I want to ask really, I mean, where does Islam really sit, or the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where does it sit? Is it still a stigma to say that media is outside of the realms of Islam, or are we sort of more liberal from it, or are we understanding Islam a bit more? How can we sort of learn from, I guess, the teachings of the Prophet and bring that into the media?
I was literally gonna politely make some goodbyes just before you. Well, the pad thai is getting cold, man. Look, and the thing in the UK right now, restaurants are closing at 10, so they're gonna get. But I will say that I didn't even think about this initially, because I always thought about what I did. My main thing was stand-up comedy, right? That was my favorite thing to do, and I never thought of it as a bad thing to tell people a joke or make them laugh or bring some happiness into their lives. I never thought of that as anything negative. I remember when I started to learn a bit more about Islam, and I came back to the Deen fold sort of in my mid-20s, around the time I got into Islam channel and met a load of people that really helped bring me closer to my faith and made me engage with my faith in a very different way to what I did prior to that. So at that point, I started to take more of an interest in, what does my faith say about my work? And I spoke to numerous scholars, but the main takeaway was, look, Atif, you're an entertainer, it's fine. And, the Prophet ﷺ used to laugh, and, you could see his back teeth. There's a wonderful hadith about this. And so the scholar said to me, look, whenever you're on stage and whenever you're perform, do everything you're doing. Try not to lie. And when he said try not to lie, it's not like, never make up a scenario or whatever. What he meant to say is, like, never lie. Like, whatever you're saying, you have Iman, right? You have Iman inside. So you will know when you're being disingenuous in a way that lets your Iman down. As long as you're not doing that, you're going to be okay. Now, obviously, I'm not a scholar. That's just the way I've applied it to my work. But I know when I do my work, I have my boundaries. Nothing I've ever done I don't, people can look up my stuff, and I don't think anything breaks the rules of any kind of moral guidelines. I did have to sit with Phil Tufnell for 3 days, but apart from that, I don't think I've ever done anything that makes me feel bad about what I've done. So, alhamdulillah, as long as you keep your moral compass there, you know that you're a Muslim, and you believe, and that belief is there, and everything you're doing is in good faith. And the really cool thing is, every time I'm about to go on stage, or every time I'm about to do a shot, or every time I'm about to do whatever it is I'm about to do professionally, I'll always say Bismillah just before I start. It's just a natural instinct. And if I'm saying Bismillah before I'm doing something, I feel like the intention is probably good. It's not just a habitual thing.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Sadia, I'm gonna come back to you, but I wanted to ask Abrar first to respond, and then I'm gonna come back to you on that same question, actually, if you don't mind.
If Abrar doesn't mind, because Abrar is such a lovely brother, he's such a nice guy, and he's a great guy. If you don't mind asking Sadia first, because her food is also getting cold. And she's
Okay. Okay, all right, go for it, I guess.
I beg your apologies.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sadia, come on.
Oh, sorry, what was your question?
Well, the elephant in the room. I mean, you were discouraged yourself by your family because of the fact that, where does Islam really say, and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of media? I mean, growing up, I mean, you guys, we weren't really encouraged in the days when we used to watch blockbusters, and obviously things have changed quite a lot since then. So, I mean, has it that we've become a bit more liberal, or is it that we're understanding a bit more?
Parents' perspective, it wasn't about Islam. It was more about, it's not a sensible career in the sense of financial stability in the future and things like that. Unless you make it, you don't really make it in the media. So I think theirs was more of a worry of, is this a good enough career for you to embark on? But I think in terms of Islam, I mean, what my family always taught me, and what all my Islamic teachers always taught me, was if you're going to do anything, make sure it's Sharia compliant, make sure you have a halal income. And I think news journalism is as halal as it gets for me, because I'm out there trying to make sure people get information the truth. I'm trying to verify all the facts in this, especially in this age of fake news. I think it's important to just deliver normal information to people, not even the controversial stuff. I'm talking about facts and figures about coronavirus, for example, that helps people know what the rules are and stuff. So I think it's, for me, I think news journalism is a halal way of living.
Well, it's interesting you said that. Actually, my grandfather, who was a scholar, actually, he was also a journalist, and he studied journalism before he came over here, and he actually ended up working for the civil service, actually. And I think that is quite interesting that you do say that, because I actually do agree. I think that people just default into thinking that, okay, if media or acting and so on and so forth. I know he's looking at his watch there.
Sorry, no, brother, if you'll forgive me, I'll take my leave. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you for joining. I really appreciate it.
Before you go, how did you get the cricket gig?
Do you have another 45 minutes to spare?
Okay, just text me. Just text me.
I'll tell you all about it another time. Alhamdulillah, it's one of my favorite gigs I've ever done. So I'm so grateful for it. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, thank you.
No, thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Enjoy the food. Happy birthday again.
Happy birthday.
Look after yourself, brother. Thanks for letting us go first, and you're a good man. Never forget.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Abra,
yeah.
can I take Abra for a second and try and segue over from what Sadi was saying about her parents' attitude. We've talked or touched upon fake news already, and we talked offline about a question of how can we be guided by our Prophet's behavior, in terms of disseminating information to our communities. Sadi said that she felt that it was a halal condition for her to spread the news that was happening in a halal fashion. How did you see the sort of reflection of the Prophet's behavior to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a weird kind of question for me, you see, because like I say, everything I've ever done in my career has been kind of Islamically based, so it's different looking at it from a mainstream perspective if you're somewhere on the mainstream. But I think the bottom line comes down to intentions. If you have a good and pure intention towards your work, then I think everything is actually halal, unless it's specifically outlawed to be haram. So, I haven't heard anyone say that doing comedy or doing news reading or making films or any of this stuff is actually haram. It's literally the intention behind it and what you intend to achieve with it. And if you intend to have a positive result from it, which I think, most Muslims working in the media do. So I think that's it, really. I think intentions is a very big word when it comes to this kind of work. And there's lots of different types of work within media as well. So different people are doing different things in different fields. Certain fields have a lot more temptation with them, that comes with it. If you're a big actor and you've got a huge following and things like this, that can bring its own pressures. Money can bring its own pressures. Fans can bring their own pressures. All these different things can add to it. But I think mostly it will just come down to intention and just keeping your intentions pure in terms of what the work you're doing and your intention for a good outcome for the work you're doing.
Jazakallah khair. Khalik? You're muted, bro.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, I was going to say that I totally agree, and I think that we need a lot more of that. Where people do understand how they can take that. So, with the modern society now, sort of social media has been a massive part of real, change in media, really. Where do you stand from a social media perspective, and how can we use social media in a positive way to further strengthen the Ummah? I mean, are you using it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who in the media industry can not use social media? It's become such an integral part of everyone's lives right now. That's not to say that I'm massively in favor of social media. I actually don't like social media. I don't respect social media. And the reason for that is, I see the good that social media does. It does a tremendous amount of good, tremendous amount of positivity spread through social media. But compared to the negative drawbacks of social media, and I'm referring specifically to the the youth who are coming through now, who haven't had any opportunity in the world without social media. So they've been born into a world that is, social media is the norm. They've been born into that. They've never seen an existence or a reality that is not associated with social media. And so I think that the pressures that is putting on the youth, the pressures to conform, the aesthetic kind of pressure that puts on people to behave a certain way, to look a certain way. I think social media, I was speaking to a sheikh about this the other day, and the sheikh said that social media is basically the biggest test that has come, in the last 20 or 30 years for this ummah. Is social media. It's such a huge test. Unregulated market, anyone says whatever they want, everyone is an expert. There's many downsides to social media, and I'm not quite sure that we see all of the whole big picture yet. I think there's maybe in another 20 years when we do research studies of the kids who've grown up with social media now, the effect it's had. And the most worrying thing obviously is the mental health. I've read so many reports recently where kids are hugely affected in terms of their mental health, but it's not even just mental health, it's also physical. It's in the way that our habits as a species are changing. This doesn't apply to Muslims, it applies to everyone across the board, everyone who's using social media, but literally sitting there and doing these kind of actions with your hand and always wanting to have more and never being able to get off it, and waking up first thing in the morning and checking social media and worrying about how many likes you've got, how many people are commenting, how many people are telling you you're fantastic and your ego's getting big, or how many people are telling you you're terrible and you're thinking about harming yourself in some way. These are all things that have been brought about by social media that didn't really exist in our sphere before. So
Absolutely.
I think social media, we just have to be so careful. Tremendous power for good, but also tremendous power for to sidetrack us. And fake news. We spoke about fake news earlier. Fake news is a byproduct of social media. Fake news wasn't really a thing before. So all of these things are related. And I just think parents, especially who've got young children, just need to be really careful about how they monitor the use of social media for their children, and how they maintain that going forward into adulthood.
I'm glad you mentioned it like that, and I'm glad I'm not in the minority here. And I'm going to have this playing on repeat to my kids because they're always forever saying, oh, why can't I use this and why can't I use that? And it is really an obsessive thing of constantly getting those dopamine hits all the time, but just constantly feeling that you're getting those brain chemicals hitting you all the time, and it's a really difficult circumstance. But I think I wanted to sort of kind of direct you on the positive aspect, or how can we now take that negativity and try to educate our kids not only from social media and the risks associated, but how do we use it to use in a positive way, especially for our communities, really? Because like you said, I mean, the kids of today and the youth of today, I mean, I would go as young as probably primary age now, that the kids are using social media in one way, shape or form or another. How can we use that in a positive way? Try to kind of move them away from the negative aspects of, say, TikTok or YouTube or any one of those different
it's
products.
so funny. As I'm here in Pakistan right now, and literally news has been announced today that TikTok has been banned in Pakistan. They've literally banned it, and it was just today. Yesterday I was on TikTok. I was literally flicking around. I don't have an account, but you can go on there and flick anyway. Flicking around on TikTok and seeing what's going on. And today he tried to do the same, and I realized it's not working. So I asked a couple of my friends. I was like, "Hey man, my TikTok's not working." They're like, "Oh yeah, PT have banned it basically because it was whatever reason they gave, something like it was something to do with how it was affecting the youth in the country." So I mean, we just have to be careful. I spoke to a sheikh specifically about this problem, about how to use social media, and what he said to me was this. He said, look, a knife can be used for good and bad. If you've got a knife and you're going to use it to butter your toast, it's a good purpose. You can use it for something good. But if you're going to use a knife and you're going to hurt someone with it, then it's useful for bad. So again, it comes down to each individual person's intentions. I feel like, if you feel like, it's not affecting you, it's not affecting your perception and your ego as well, because social media, I think a lot of it is built on a big bubble of ego. If social media is not affecting you, then obviously you can manage it in that way. But for certain people, I would definitely say, look, it's not something that has to be a necessity part of our life going forward. And if it is, it should just play a small part, not the main part. You'd much rather talk to someone face to face and still do those kind of things than just live in a virtual kind of, because how long before it's just literally a virtual reality? You're on social media and that's where you exist. And that's where you're actually the real person, and the actual person is not is not important anymore. It's literally the perception that is on social media that becomes important.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm sure they've made a movie or something about this on one of these channels, about the fact that, you know, people in the future will be living in this virtual reality world, and that's quite interesting. And actually, it's banned in my house as well, by the way, TikTok. So
Can I just say, if anyone wants to unmute and ask Abrar a question live, please do, because I know Abrar's short for time this evening, and it's been a whistle-stop tour through the guests, and we're sort of flying through the time at the moment. So if anyone does want to unmute and ask, please ask Abrar live.
No, and I'm so grateful, because bro, it's like the middle of the night over there. Really,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
really
yeah,
late here,
yeah. I mean, I'm really grateful that you stayed up to join us. I mean, you can't imagine how happy I was that you agreed to join, because
a pleasure to be here.
No, and you know, me and you go way back, right? So, you know, seeing you here and seeing the success that you've got from, you know, such great, you know, positive stuff, it's been unbelievable, really. I can't thank you enough for making the kinds of things I've made.
Yeah, I mumbled my way through the whole session. I'm completely starstruck. It's been a big deal for Sheikhs Breaks, so thank you, Abrar.
Well, whilst we're getting some questions, whilst we're getting some questions together, actually, I mean, I was going to say that, did you want to plug your forthcoming, you know, what's coming up next?
I mean, sure. You know, there's actually three new films coming that have got distribution deals attached to them. Really looking forward to releasing these films. But obviously, the pandemic at the moment is playing havoc with everything. You know, as they say, we make our plans, and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. So at the moment, I'm feeling that with Allah. We have got a film that is basically waiting for release now. It was meant to be released in June, and then we dropped it to November, and now it's been dropped again to February. You know, hoping that the cinemas, you know, there's really bad news about, you know, because our films go on cinemas. We're reliant on the cinemas being open and people going to the cinemas to watch these films. And now with the news from Cineworld the other day, really, you know, kind of shocking that, you know, one of the major chains in the UK is announcing that it's going to close. So inshallah, I pray that Allah solves this pandemic soon, and things can get somewhat back to normal. Maybe not as normal as they were before, but somewhere back to normal, you know. So inshallah, make dua for that.
Inshallah, yeah, and hopefully it's going to go great places. So, I mean, I think we wanted to sort of allow some of the community members, if you don't mind, if you've got a few more minutes, to ask a couple of questions. I think, you know, there were a few questions that were raised. I'm going to ask, see if Matthew is still there, then maybe he can go first.
I think, Khalid, we asked Matthew's question, but I think I skipped Vais's question. So if Vais is still on the call.
Let me just check.
While we're waiting for that, Abrar, how are things COVID-wise in Pakistan? Are you in Islamabad at the moment?
Yeah, Islamabad at the moment. I mean, it feels much. I'll tell you what, there might be still spikes going on here and there, but it feels really safe here. One thing I'll say, there's not the paranoia that there is in the UK. You know, in the UK, it really seems to be a lot of really bad stories regarding COVID coming out continuously, and the government is continuously making announcements about it, and people are continuously having the rules changed. But since I came here, a lot more relaxed. Hardly any cases that I can see around me. People are still taking precautions here, but there's just not that fear in the air. That people are not very wary of COVID. They're not afraid of it, and literally going about their business on a day-to-day. So it feels a very different atmosphere to in the UK. I think there's a lot of paranoia in the UK. I certainly know I used to get paranoid just going to the petrol station or going to Tesco's in the UK. Made sure I had my gloves, my face mask, everything. And you know, I think just the diet of news that comes out continuously regarding this, it makes people maybe a bit wary in the UK. But here, very relaxed. Everything seems very relaxed here.
Okay. And just going back to the social media thing. So you mentioned that you're not a big fan, and you wouldn't encourage it, but obviously our kids are sort of deep into it, and you sort of talked about ways of managing it. But if you're looking to get into media, is it something that you think is a necessary avenue into creating a stage for yourself?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, you know, when you say media, it's so broad. I think, if you want to be your aspiration is to be an influencer, to be someone with a large following on social media, then of course that's going to play a part. But, if you're looking to become a journalist or write for a newspaper, for example, or become a researcher, for TV shows and things like, you don't really need to have a social media presence. It's not something that's going to add to your career. So it really depends which, field of media you're going to go into. There's so many different kind of options now, and some of them are going to be heavily reliant on social media, but some is going to have no bearing at all.
Jazakallah khair. So I think we're sort of coming to a close now, Abra. I know you've got to go, and like I said, Jazakallah khair for joining the session so late over there, and giving your insights into the media. Good luck with all your future projects. Inshallah, we'll be showing them at the masjid whenever we get the chance.
Absolutely, yeah.
And keep in touch. We'd love to have you on again. I'm sure we'll be doing another sort of media type show, maybe from a different angle. But like I said, do keep in touch, and we'll like to have you on again.
Yeah,
so,
it'd be amazing if you come.
Jazakallah khair for organizing this, brothers, and thank you for everyone who tuned in to listen to the discussion. It's been a real pleasure, and inshallah, I hope to catch up with you guys soon back in the UK.
Inshallah, you got to come over.
Al-Emaan said,
absolutely. We'll link up with Duke somewhere.
absolutely. That's another one of our friends. In fact, our mutual friend. I think it goes back from the early days. Yeah, absolutely. No, honestly, it's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to hearing the positive news of the 3 blockbusters that are going to come out, inshallah. And and always seeing you dotting around all over the world, and have a great time and stay safe in Islamabad as well.
Jazakallah khair. And yourselves, brothers. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, bro.